I was the former chair of the Eastside Neighborhood Council, and there weren't that many community groups. And people would come to the neighborhood council and say, we want to do this event, will you sponsor it? And we started saying, you don't need our sponsorship. You can do things. All right, we'll come. We'll put our name on it. We'll help you promote it. But it's your event. Do it. Along with the community-based services groups and Safe Streets and some other initiatives, there are all sorts of neighborhood groups that just kind of grew up and realized that, or rose up, I guess, and realized that, if you know 2 people at each end of your block and you take a walk every day and pick up the trash and you report these 5 things, it's great. And then if you name yourself, well, then you're a contact point for other organizations to reach you. So I think advocacy in general is important. Knowing your neighbors is important. All of it has tremendous effect, especially in an urban environment where it's very easy to kind of live in a concrete block and not know your neighbors and not be part of your world.
There was a big headline in the paper, and it was that there was no recess in Tacoma anymore. The kids were not getting recess, and parents were just really upset. And I was the citizen parent out there that was just like, what do you mean no recess? And the first piece of that was approaching the school board and saying, we have a problem with this. We're hearing that there's no recess going on anymore, and how can this be? And it led to one school board member saying, well, if you think there should be a recess policy, why don't you put one together and come back to us and we'll take a look at it. Well, the PTA members and the parents who were concerned, and the community members too, formed this great committee and spent hours and hours putting together a policy, a proposed policy. All the footnotes and documentation to support why recess is so important, and it was something that no one had ever done before. And then they went back to the school board and they brought it before them. And it was a great moment because you could just see this huge rallying around the effort, and a lot of community members are really in support of this.
You look at the visibility raised by the Heart Walk. I mean, that doesn't seem like an advocacy thing, but it so is. It is the largest single not-for-profit fundraiser in the United States, and it started with a lady in Tacoma getting 5 friends to put together some money to do a walk, and I think it was so much more involved than that. But that's an advocacy effort that is a national phenomena. I mean, there's certain times of the year that you're going to be hard-pressed to find a kitchen product that doesn't come in pink.
In the area of public safety and the issues that always come up, maybe concerns with police tension, because police are the ones that have the right to take away a citizen's rights on behalf of the state or behalf of the city. And there's always tension that can come from that. And I know that citizens throughout the city, even before I worked for the city, if they ever believe the city has abused that right in some way or crossed the line, that's where activism has always come out to say, you know what, with the police or with any type of government strength that you have, maybe to take property or to, as in the police, to restrain somebody, that's when activism in Tacoma, I think, has always been very successful. They've come out and they said, government, you've gone too far. You don't have a right to, you've crossed this line. And I think that is probably always one of the most important roles the activist has, is to always hold government accountable when you've gone too far. And that's the watchdog element. And I think that in the city of Tacoma, people have done that really well.
Representative democracy is so important, and it's so underrepresented and so underemphasized that people, again, feel really disconnected. And so understanding that it isn't something that is so far outside of themselves that they can't participate can really have an effect on social change in the long run. Ultimately, these grassroots organizations and groups and these individual people who are working their tails off to get the word out about the issues that they care most about, in order for those things to move through the process and to get to what is usually the ultimate goal of changing the laws that affect people's lives on a daily basis, they have to understand each step of the process along the way, regardless of what it is that they're advocating for or against.
Across the United States, there is a growing sentiment that our government no longer represents us. Many people across the political spectrum perceive government as the outsider, out to steal their hard-earned money and squander it. It's easy to get frustrated by this perception and to withdraw from participating in the government altogether, but a democratic form of government relies on participation by the public that it is supposed to represent. In many ways, it is the lack of public participation that creates the perceived dysfunction of government, that creates the public's very frustration with the government. Feeding back on itself, this effect seems like it amplifies over time. Yet the tools of real representative democracy are still lying around if people will just pick them up and use them. However, it will take more than just voting every couple of years. If people want government to more fully represent them, they must fully participate in the process of picking and organizing support for the candidates that more fully represent their views. It is equally important for citizens to communicate with whatever government they currently do have. Government cannot know what you want it to do, and it cannot know how what it does affects you if it is not told by you. This is especially true at the city and neighborhood levels. At these community levels, you have the strongest influence, and it is the area that most affects your immediate life. By starting to get involved in your local government, you can simultaneously learn valuable skills and make connections with other civically minded people. These networks are what allow widespread political changes to take place. This is the only way that democracy can work. Without public participation, it degrades into oligarchy. They cannot do democracy for us. We must do it for ourselves. So go get involved.